South Africa is a dream destination, and experiencing this incredible region through a cruise can transform your journey into an unforgettable adventure. It presents a unique opportunity to immerse yourself in the vibrant cultures, breathtaking views, and thrilling safari experiences, all while indulging in the comforts of a cruise ship. Welcome back everyone to another video of Mike on the Move. I am Mike and I embarked on a 12-day South African cruise itinerary aboard the NCL Dawn cruise ship, going from the beautiful island nation of Mauritius to the vibrant city of Cape Town, South Africa. In this video, I will share my transformative South African experience aboard the NCL Dawn cruise ship, traveling to breathtaking bucket list destinations in Mauritius, Réunion, Madagascar, and South Africa. I'll highlight the South African cruise itinerary, give you all a brief overview of the cruise ship, and provide you valuable tips to enhance your next cruise adventure. If you're considering to take a South African cruise itinerary or want to discover more about this inspiring journey, this video is for you. Let's get this video started. This cruise itinerary included 6 ports of call, showcasing some of the most remote and unique destinations. Our stops included Réunion, which is a French island, Nosy Be in Madagascar, and 3 ports in South Africa, including Richards Bay, Port Elizabeth, and Mossel Bay, before concluding our adventure in Cape Town, South Africa. It's important to note that this original cruise itinerary included 2 additional ports of call in Mozambique, making it a total of 8 ports of call. However, just days before we boarded the cruise ship, NCL notified us of a modification to the original itinerary. I began my travels by arriving in the island nation of Mauritius 3 days before embarking on my cruise. Located about 1,500 miles off the African coast, I flew into Sir Siwu Sugur Ram Gulam International Airport in the southern part of the island. Often referred to as the Pearl of the Indian Ocean, Mauritius is part of Africa's geography and is known for its stunning beaches, lush vegetation, vibrant activities, and rich culture. The island attracts vacationers from around the world. And during my 3-day stay, I was able to experience some of the best of what Mauritius has to offer, including the iconic Le Morne Brabant, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the natural wonder of Camarel 7-colored earth and waterfall, the spiritual Grand Basin, and the beautiful white sandy beaches throughout the island. If you're interested in learning more about what to see and do in Mauritius, check out my Mauritius travel guide. I'm going to feature it at the corner of your screen, or find a direct link of the video in this video description. I rented a car for my visit in Mauritius, and I arranged to have it dropped off at the cruise terminal in the capital city of Port Louis. After spending 3 days in Mauritius, we were excited to arrive at the cruise terminal. I could hardly wait to board the cruise ship and escape the island heat and get comfortable. However, upon arriving at the cruise terminal, my excitement quickly turned to shock, anxiety, and disappointment. Boarding the Norwegian Dawn in Mauritius turned out to be one of the worst embarkation experiences I ever had. When we arrived at the cruise port, we were greeted by a large line of passengers waiting in the hot African sun. There was nowhere to drop off our luggage, so we had to hold on to it until we reached a large white tent. Many older guests struggled to stand in the heat for hours, which was understandable. It took nearly 3 hours to check in and board the Norwegian Dawn. I sincerely hope this isn't your experience when you board an NCL cruise from Mauritius. Once we were on the ship, everything got better. We quickly hydrated and began exploring the ship. The Norwegian Dawn is a mid-sized cruise ship that can accommodate up to 2,300 passengers. Launched in 2002, it has undergone 2 refurbishments, with the most recent update taking place in 2021. Some of my favorite features of the ship include the Grand Atrium on Deck 7. This was my first impression of the cruise ship. Here you find the reception desk along with a Starbucks, where I indulge in my daily sugar high with a Frappuccino. I also enjoyed the promenade deck on Deck 7. This promenade deck wraps fully around the ship, allowing for easy access without needing to cut through the interior. I spent my mornings, afternoons, and evenings here soaking in the outdoor scenery and getting fresh air while getting my steps in for the day. I also enjoyed the Pulse Center, or the gym, on Deck 12. This was an oversized gym featuring over a dozen treadmills, weight machines, and free weights, making it easy for me to maintain my workout routine on vacation. I enjoy mid-sized cruise ships, and I do enjoy cruising with Norwegian Cruise Line. However, there were some significant red flags on board the NCL Dawn. And if it wasn't for the unique itinerary, I would hesitate to cruise again on this cruise ship. If you're interested to learn more about my top concerns of the NCL Dawn cruise ship, check out the video featured in the top right-hand corner of your screen, or find the link of the video in this video description. The ship departed at 10 p.m. and due to the late hour, there was no official sail away party. Réunion, France. By 8 a.m., we arrived in Réunion, France, and had 11 hours to explore this destination. We disembarked at Pont de Gaillet, commonly referred to as Le Port. After quickly getting off the ship, we shuttled less than a quarter mile to the tourist terminal, since the ship docked in an active shipyard. The tourist terminal in Le Port Réunion was well organized and welcoming for over 2,000 passengers. It provided shuttle and taxi services to Le Port City, which featured markets and a harbor. With our limited time in Réunion, we planned to rent a car in Saint Denis, about 16 kilometers or 10 miles from the cruise terminal, and focus on visiting the famous Piton de la Furnace, the Peak of the Furnace, which is an active volcano and is the most visited tourist site on the island. However, the main highway to St. Denis was closed during our visit, which forced us to cancel our initial plans. So we had to quickly look for a taxi or private driver. Fortunately, after repeatedly asking several private tour guides for assistance, one guide mentioned that he had a friend looking for work that day. It was a Sunday, so we were able to negotiate a full-day excursion to the Piton de la Furnace volcano for a total of 450 euros, which is about $480 in a private van. Realizing we don't need an entire van for ourselves, and seeing that other passengers were struggling to find a private tour, we sought to recruit 2 additional people to join us. This reduced the cost to about $120 per person, split among 4 people. And the cruise was offering the same excursion, but for $189 per person, so we saved while also enjoying the day at our own pace. So we made our way south to the Piton de la Furnace, or La Volcan, which was about 70 miles or 110 kilometers away, making the drive a little over an hour and a half. Réunion is a French-administered island off the coast of Africa, with a population of almost 870,000 people. Known for its natural beauty, Réunion offers some of the best hiking opportunities. The drive down on National Route 1 was pretty spectacular, showcasing beautiful coastlines for the first 45 minutes. And as we ascended on National Route 3, we passed through some lush green forest and pastures. At a high elevation, the driver stopped at a famous viewing point called Ramparts River Valley, which provided the most breathtaking view of the entire trip. The Ramparts, which is a wall-like ridge, was more than 1,000 meters or 3,200 feet high, and the view was absolutely stunning. After a few minutes, we continued with our journey to the active volcano. The driver made a quick stop at the cumbersome crater, a caldera that is part of Le Volcan. We continued towards Le Volcan and stopped at the Plon des Sables viewpoint, which offered a breathtaking view of the unique volcanic landscape. Badu Belokoma, often referred to as the gateway to hell, is the main access point to the volcano's summit. Unfortunately, as we drove through Plon des Sables towards the base of the volcano, the fog became dense and we lost visibility of the volcano. And given our limited time, we knew we couldn't hike the 6-kilometer or 3.5 mile to the volcano's base, which would take us at least 3 to 4 hours to complete. With only 1 hour to spend here, we tried to make the most of our time and experience. And aware that the clock is ticking and the uncertainty about traffic conditions on our way back to the ship, we decided to head back. On our way back to the cruise terminal, we stopped by a resort village called St. Giles, where we found a lovely boardwalk and beautiful sandy white beaches. This stop was only 20 kilometers or 12 miles from the cruise terminal. It's worth noting that visiting Piton de la Fournaise is free. On day 3 was a scheduled sea day, and on day 4, we were scheduled to arrive in Antsiranana, Madagascar at 8 a.m. However, just as we were nearing the dock, our arrival was unexpectedly canceled due to poor weather conditions. Mother Nature demonstrated her power that day. As we quickly departed from Antsiranana, the storm intensified, bringing strong winds and heavy rain that forced everyone to seek shelter. As a result, day 4 turned into another sea day. Nosy Be, Madagascar. The following day, we awoke on the NCL Dawn cruise ship to calm weather as we cruised into Nosy Be, Madagascar. Nosy Be, which means Big Island, is a larger island off the northwest coast of Madagascar. This island is known for its famous lemurs, ylang-ylang plantations, and the largest city on the island, Hellville. We arrived on time at 7 a.m., but this was a short stop as we only had 6 hours in this destination, with an all-aboard time at 2 p.m. Since this was a tender port, the ship was unable to dock directly and instead anchored offshore, dropping off passengers using a tender boat. Tendering to shore took over 30 minutes. Given the limited time we had, we quickly made our way onto shore. Once we arrived, we found many NCL reserved excursions for those who had booked in advance on the cruise, as well as a few private tours. We decided to do our own tour, so as soon as we'd reached the port, we quickly looked out for any private tour guides available. We negotiated to do a trip to Lemurland to check out the lemurs, which are unique to Madagascar, and we also added a trip to check out Hellville, which is the main town in Nosy Be. We ended up paying about $40 for transportation via tuk-tuk. As we left the port, we saw dozens of artists, artisans, and business owners selling their goods to cruise passengers, all with the NCL Dawn in the backdrop. Riding in the tuk-tuk was a highlight of my adventure as we got a sense of the everyday life on Nosy Be. We experienced the daily tuk-tuk traffic jams and watched people going about their day. We also quickly realized the dire poverty and hardships faced by the residents of this island. Lemurland Park is located about 2.8 kilometers or less than 2 miles away from the port, and the trip lasted about 15 to 20 minutes. Once we arrived at the park, we found dozens of parked tuk-tuks and tourist cars as hundreds of passengers from the cruise had also made their way here. The entry to the park was 45,000 ariary or $10 US. The park was actually pretty amazing as the lemurs were everywhere and they were quite inquisitive, coming within feet of us. The cost of your ticket includes an English-speaking guide, so we spent a few hours seeing various types of lemurs, as well as chameleons, giant tortoises, crocodiles, but lemurs were definitely the highlight of this park. After about 2 hours, we made our way back to check out Hellville. Hellville has an estimated 50,000 residents and is the largest city on the Nosy Be island. Here you can stroll around, experience daily life, and shop for souvenirs. Visiting the main town is a highlight, and I recommend making time to visit, either on foot or via tuk-tuk. I also highly recommend you stopping by the main Hellville market. The market is the center of Hellville and is a must-see for experiencing Nosy Be's culture and business center. Here you will find more souvenirs and food, but please be mindful of your personal belongings. While the Malagasy people are generally not dangerous, Madagascar and Nosy Be is one of the poorest countries and places, and your mobile phone or camera might attract unwanted attention. As we made our way back to the cruise ship, our tuk-tuk driver gave us an extra tour of the small town. As we drove around Hellville, we quickly noticed the low tide. During these low tides, you will notice that there are no beaches, but only long stretches of mud flats. By 1:30, we returned back to the port, hopped onto a tender, and got back onto the cruise ship. Shortly after, we set sail away from Nosy Be, making our only visit in Madagascar complete. On day 6 and day 7, this cruise itinerary originally included 2 stops in Mozambique, but unfortunately, these destinations were removed from our cruise itinerary. So now we had these 2 extra sea days before arriving on the African continent. So I spent my 2 sea days as much as possible outdoors on the open deck, exercising at the Pulse Fitness Center, savoring delicious wines at the Cellar's Wine Bar, playing fun games at the casino, and enjoying great conversations at dinner. Richards Bay, South Africa. We arrived in Richards Bay on a beautiful, clear blue sky day. We docked at 10 a.m. and the ship was scheduled to depart at 9 p.m., giving passengers over 10 hours to enjoy our first stop in South Africa. All of the passengers on the ship were excited as Richards Bay is a gateway to various safaris, including the famous Holo and Unfolozi Game Reserve. However, that excitement quickly turned into worry and frustration as we realized the disembarkation from the ship was not going to be easy. The combination of South African customs and immigration requirements, along with the disorganization on the part of NCL Cruise Line, made getting off the ship a nightmare, one that took over 3 hours. To my surprise, we found ourselves in a coal dock covered in coal dust that was blowing everywhere. Thankfully, I had a few face masks in my backpack and I quickly put one on to avoid inhaling this black dust. For our time in Richards Bay, we plan to do our own tour to visit one of the best safaris in South Africa. I had reserved a rental car at the Richards Bay Airport, which is about 11 kilometers or 7 miles away from the port. To get a taxi or an Uber, we first need to make our way outside the port gate. Once at the gate, we discovered dozens of other passengers also seeking transportation. Although Ubers are available in Richards Bay, there were a limited number of drivers available at the time. Fortunately, we found a taxi willing to take us to the airport. Upon arriving at the airport, we were quickly attended to our rental car, and by 3:30, we were on our way to check out Holo Unfolozi Game Reserve. Holo is one of the oldest nature reserves in Africa and is located about 80 kilometers or 50 miles from Richards Bay. After the significant delays we experienced this day, we only had 5 hours left before the 9 o'clock all aboard time, and we needed to include at least 3 hours for the round trip travel time. This left us with very little time to explore the reserve. The drive to the park was pretty easy. The roads were well marked and well paved. After about an hour and a half, we arrived at the Holoholohe Umfolosi Game Reserve. This game reserve contains all of the big 5 game animals, including the lion, the elephant, the leopard, buffalo, and rhino, up close and personal. We entered the park by going through the Nylazi gate and paid a daily admission fee of 240 Rand, equivalent to $13 US, and we received a park map along with the admission fee. Given our limited time, we opted to do a self-driving adventure tour with our compact Toyota rental car, hoping to see some wildlife animals ourselves. It's important to note that the NCL company was offering this tour on board the ship for $239 per person. With just a little over an hour to explore, we had to move quickly and stay aware of our surroundings, as the park covers over 96,000 hectares, equivalent to 370 square miles. This means the park is over 20 miles long and 19 miles wide. By 5 p.m., we began our self-drive safari, filled with excitement and anticipation. Within minutes, we spotted a herd of antelope. Then we came across a group of zebras. And then shortly after that, we saw another group of zebras near the roadside. A bit later, we passed the Swart Mofolosi River and witnessed a group of elephants crossing the river and 2 young elephants playfully interacting. It was pretty unbelievable. After driving over 20 kilometers or about 12 miles, we arrived in Mpila camp, where we made a quick restroom stop before heading back. It was now about 6:30, and I began to feel a little bit anxious about getting back to the ship on time. To ensure we arrived back punctually to the ship, we decided to drive back directly towards where we came from, admiring the wildlife without stopping. After about 7 minutes, we were surprised and stopped by a mother elephant and her calf. I was trying to remain in the moment, feeling grateful for the opportunity to witness such a beautiful experience, and at the same time, I was feeling anxious about time. After another 10 minutes of driving, we were stopped again, but this time by a larger group of elephants. Although I felt rushed, I couldn't help but feel lucky to see this magnificent animal up close. Unfortunately, we had to keep moving. On our way back, we spotted more zebras, more antelope, and another giant elephant by the side of the road. Fortunately, we made it back to the airport to return our rental car by 8:30 p.m. and we arranged for the rental car employee to drive us back to the port cruise terminal. Luckily, we were dropped off just 10 minutes before the all-aboard time of 9 p.m. The stress of getting back onto the ship was real. However, knowing we had experienced a fantastic and unforgettable adventure, despite the earlier delays, called for a celebration dinner and drinks. So once on the ship, the Aqua restaurant, one of the complimentary dining options aboard the ship, was open until 9:30 p.m., allowing us to enjoy a delicious dinner followed by drinks before calling it a night. The next day, we had a relaxing day at sea as we made our way down south for our next destination, Port Elizabeth, South Africa. The cruise ship docked at Port Elizabeth on time at 6 a.m. with an all-aboard time of 6:30. We had over 12 hours to experience Port Elizabeth and its surroundings. Since we met South African immigration and custom requirements at the previous port in Richards Bay, we had no issues disembarking from the ship. Port Elizabeth does not have a cruise terminal, so the NCL Dawn docked in a busy industrial port. However, I didn't mind for this arrangement. And for passengers who did not book a tour directly with the cruise line, transportation would need to be picked up outside the port gates. The walk outside the gate is short, less than a mile long. For this visit, we had planned a self-guided tour to explore the famous Addo Elephant National Park. and needed to make our way to the airport to pick up our transportation. We were able to secure an Uber driver very easily. By 10 a.m., we were en route to the airport to collect our rental car, which is about 4 kilometers or 2.5 miles away from the port. Upon arriving at Chief David Sturman International Airport, we had to make our way to the ATM to withdraw some South African rand and then picked up our rental car. We managed to get the most affordable rental option, considering we would only need it for a few hours this day. We inspected the car for any damages before driving it out of the parking lot. Everything looked good, and so we were ready to go. We left the airport parking lot, and given our limited time in Port Elizabeth, we headed directly to the freeway to make our way to Addo Elephant National Park. Port Elizabeth is the coastal hub of the Eastern Cape and is famous for its beaches, history, culture, and safari excursions just a short drive away. As soon as we got onto the freeway, we passed the central district of Port Elizabeth to our left and a cruise terminal to the right. Traveling to Addo National Park from Port Elizabeth is straightforward, and the distance is about 100 kilometers or 60 miles. There are 2 entrances for Addo National Park, the South Gate and the Main Gate, which is located further north. You want to enter through the Main Gate, where most of the safari facilities are located. Entering from the north will allow you to experience the entire park, and it's designed to be this way, and the exit through the South Gate will bring you closer to Port Elizabeth. The drive itself was smooth, and the freeways are well built and well signed. You will need to take the N2 and make your way to the main camp via the N10, passing through Patterson. For safety reasons, it's advisable to drive to the main camp through Patterson. After about an hour, we reached the main gate. Upon entering, we encountered a large disclaimer and warning sign about safety and the prohibition of firearms and drones. The security guard searched our vehicle for firearms and drones, and since I had my drone with me, I had to declare it, and the security guard locked it up in a bag similar to a cash deposit bag. I would be able to retrieve the bag once we reached Southgate. We then made our way to the Welcome Center to pay for the daily park permit fee of 437 Rand per person, which is about $24 US. With the fee, we received a park map. We also explored the facilities available at the Welcoming Center, including a large wall map where we can plan out our day further and visited the souvenir shop. Important to note, visiting Addo National Park through the cruise line cost $149 per person. With our park map and day visitor permit in hand, we were ready to enter the park. Since this is a national park with dangerous wild animals, tourists are not allowed to leave their vehicles at all. There is a zero tolerance policy for exiting your vehicle. However, there are several designated lookout points where you can step out of your car at your own risk and take a look. After about 15 minutes, we decided to stop at our first viewpoint, which overlooked a water hole where we were able to see a few zebras eating under the hot sun. As we continued driving, we spotted a herd of zebras along the road. To be honest, I was concerned that we might not be able to see any elephants or wild animals, given that it was the middle of the day and the temperatures was extremely hot, well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. However, after about an hour of driving and keeping an eye out, we finally stumbled upon a herd of elephants, including a mother and her babies. On this day, I was able to witness when a herd of zebras approached a family of elephants in search of water. Sadly, the large elephant wasn't having it, and it scared off the zebra herd from the water hole. After about 20 minutes, we continued our self-safari tour and came across dozens of zebras. I really enjoyed watching the young ones engage in playful behavior. We also encountered a female warthog with her piglets, which added an excitement to our adventure. As we made our way south to the South Gate, we visited the last water hole in the park, which was the best way to conclude our visit. We saw dozens of elephants along with a variety of other wildlife running around. As we approached the South Gate, we had to show our day permit, and I was able to retrieve my drone from that safety bag. We spent a total of 5 hours exploring Addo National Park, and by 5 p.m., we were able to make our way back to the airport to drop off our rental car. By 6 p.m., we returned the car and called for an Uber to pick us up. And by 6:30, we were back at the cruise terminal, possibly one of the last passengers before the all-aboard time was announced at 6:30. Once back on the ship, we quickly refreshed ourselves with a cold shower, enjoyed a glass of wine, and made our way up to the deck 12 for the sail away. Given the cloud types, I anticipated an amazing sunset was waiting to happen, and I was right. This was perhaps one of the best sunsets I've ever witnessed, and this was all happening as we said goodbye to Port Elizabeth. Mossel Bay, South Africa. We arrived on time at 8 a.m. Stepping out onto our stateroom balcony, I noticed that the ship had all its tenders ready to go. Mossel Bay has a small boat pier, but no cruise terminal, so that meant the ship had to anchor in the bay and tender passengers ashore. Before disembarking the ship, I grabbed an iced coffee from the Starbucks on deck 7. This morning, I ordered a cafe americano with very little cream and made my way down to deck 4 to catch a tender. For this visit, NCL gave us 8 hours to explore Mossel Bay with an all-aboard time of 4 p.m. NCL is quite efficient in getting people on the tenders. After about 20 minutes, we made it to shore. Once on the harbor, it was a 5-minute walk into town. Since we already had spent plenty of time on self safaris in Richards Bay and Port Elizabeth, we decided to keep it simple and explore what Mossel Bay has to offer. Aside from safaris, there is plenty to see and do in Mossel Bay, which is situated on the Cape of St. Blaise Peninsula. I recommend visiting Cape St. Blaise Historic Lighthouse and Landmark, perched above Mossel Bay, offering a unique view of the coastal town. This iconic, fully operating lighthouse stands tall at 73 meters or 240 feet above sea level. There is a small admission fee of 100 Rand, which allows you to climb to the top of the lighthouse tower, experience the beautiful ocean views from the top, and learn about the rich history of the lighthouse and the role it played in guiding ships safely to shore. However, I must caution that this activity isn't suitable for those who are scared of heights or have claustrophobia. Visiting the tower requires climbing 2 sets of very old, narrow wooden ladders and a tight wooden staircase. And once at the top, you will need to crawl through a very narrow doorway to access the outside. However, once outside, you will be rewarded with breathtaking views of Mossel Bay. There is also a small restaurant at the bottom of the lighthouse for those who prefer not to climb to the top. It offers both inside and outside seating with fantastic views. Next, I recommend checking out the St. Blaise Trail, which is linked to the lighthouse. The trail is 13 kilometers or 8 miles long and hugs the western cliffs, providing some spectacular views. As you begin your hike, you'll encounter the Cape of St. Blaise Cave, an archaeological site located under the historic lighthouse. This is a natural grotto that overlooks the sea and is a fantastic piece of human history, with archaeological excavations suggesting that people lived here during the Middle Stone Ages around 200,000 years ago. The trail is clearly marked from start to finish, and you should allocate 4 to 5 hours to complete it. On your walk, keep an eye out for these small, furry, rabbit-like animals called dassies. They are native to this part of the world. Now, if time still permits, I recommend you check out the public market in the Central District in Mossel Bay. There, I was able to purchase some fantastic art pieces from some local artists, including this colorful elephant painting behind me. By 4 p.m., we made our way back to the pier, where we quickly found a massive line and wait time ahead of us to tender back onto the ship. Although the all-aboard time was 4 p.m., we knew the ship wouldn't leave without us or the other passengers. Fortunately for us, the line did move fairly quickly. After about 20 minutes, we boarded the tender and returned back onto the ship. After returning to the ship, I quickly took a shower and wore my new tie-dye t-shirt I purchased that day in Mossel Bay. We then made our way to the Cellar's wine bar for an evening glass of wine, enjoyed a show at the Stardust Theater, and then had a dinner at Le Bistro restaurant. Cape Town, South Africa. The NCL Dawn docked early at 6 a.m. and when I woke up, I was thrilled to step out onto my balcony and see the iconic Table Mountain rising over the city skyline. It was an exhilarating feeling. I quickly had to rush up to the 12th deck to get a better view. For this itinerary, we had an overnight stay in Cape Town, which meant we had a full day to explore before officially disembarking the ship the next morning. So at 8 a.m., the ship allowed passengers to disembark for the day. Since we had the entire day ahead of us, I wanted to make the most of it. I started out with a lunch at the Garden Cafe before leaving the ship. The cruise didn't dock at the official Cape Town cruise terminal, but rather at one of the commercial ports. There was no direct access out of the port, so all passengers had to take a shuttle. NCL provided a free shuttle bus that dropped us off 5 kilometers or 3 miles away at the V&A waterfront. This is a vibrant area featuring a massive shopping center, a variety of restaurants, and entertainment options. Here you can also book tours including the Big Red Bus, all against the stunning backdrop of Table Mountain. I decided to do a self-tour and get all the best sights and things to do in Cape Town. For your day in Cape Town, I recommend you spend time at the V&A waterfront and take the hop-on, hop-off bus tour. This is the best way to see and experience all the iconic locations in Cape Town in one day. I completed both the city tour and the peninsula tour, which took me to the famous Table Mountain, where I was able to ride the cable car to the summit. This tour also included stops at the historic and famous Constantia wine region, where I sampled wine from the famous Groot Constantia delicious pinotage, and I ended the city bus tour by enjoying breathtaking views of the beautiful Cape Peninsula with the stunning coastline and the famous 12 Apostles. We returned to the ship at 8:30 p.m., witnessing our last sunset on the South African cruise adventure, with clouds rolling over Table Mountain on our final night. After packing our bags and placing them in the hallway, we headed to our last dinner on the ship at the Pagney's restaurant, where I savored a delicious surf and turf meal. Taking an African cruise is not for everyone, and it definitely comes with some limitations, such as limited time in port, the lack of flexibility, and potentially weather issues that can disrupt your itinerary. However, an African cruise is an adventure, and unlike your typical cruise, it requires you to be flexible and ready for the unexpected, so you gotta kinda go with the flow. Personally, since this was my first visit to Africa, I really appreciated the convenience, the safety, and the access to remote and unique destinations this cruise had to offer. And while we experienced plenty of issues with the NCL Dawn because it had lots of issues, I wouldn't hesitate to cruise to Africa again. Well folks, this brings us to the end of my video, and I hope you found it helpful as you plan or dream about your next cruise adventure in Africa. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know, and I'll try to respond to you as soon as possible. But before you go, please make sure to subscribe to Mike on the Move so I can keep you updated on my latest videos and adventures. I hope you all stay healthy and be well. See y'all later. Bye-bye.